Welcome to Living Truth. I am Angela James. Together with John Usher, we invite you to dialogues designed to awaken you to truth, enlighten you to who you are, and to invite you to live a reality that you want. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Living Truth. Today is exciting, John. I'm excited. What about you?
I'm good, excited, happy we're getting into the opening activation. Hello!
Yay! That's why I'm excited, because today we get into the first part of the opening activation. So we're going to just kind of talk you through, because we've added a piece into the opening activation, and we will be changing the stuff that goes up on Facebook and all the other things with Canva. So today, John, do you want to do the honors today?
Sure. In terms of the opening activation, it goes like this. Yeah. We dissolve, heal, transmute, and seed in, out, B&D, crowns, fish, cornucopia, and more in grace. Yay!
Yep. Yay!
Bizarre
and
statement.
It's a
bizarre statement. And even
when
you know what it means, it's still a bizarre statement.
Not only bizarre, it's incredibly powerful. And that's one of the things that we're finding. I mean, I don't believe, we were saying the other day, don't believe that we've even scratched the surface of the depth of what it can do, and how incredibly powerful it actually is. So today we're going to take the first dive into the statement, and that's about dissolve. So for me, the image that it conjures up, I always kind of see like a Eno tablet or a spoon of Enos or effervescent tablet going into a glass of water and just dissolving and disappearing and dissipating. I know you have a different visual.
No, same one. It's absolutely that. Oh. It dissolves it for me. It just, the whole thing is, everything is energy. So, in terms of, when you go for a massage or you go for shiatsu or whatever, and they talk about, the energy is blocked, and it'll form a lump where the energy is blocked. What you want to do is you want to dissolve that energy. You want to get it moving. And that's what the dissolve is about. It's breaking down.
So what are we dissolving, John? Sorry, I just overtalked you again. Dissolving, and then you were saying something about making place for the new?
Yeah, so it's dissolving whatever is blocked, whatever is causing the inhibition. I say inhibition, blocking the progress. And you want to seed. You don't want to just dissolve, because then you're creating a void. You're creating a vacuum. And nature abhors, hates, dislikes a vacuum, and will do its utmost best to fill that vacuum. And the way it goes, if you're not seeding something in its place, nature will, the universe will seed its own thing in there. So it's best that you consciously decide what's going to go in its place, But we will get to the seeding part of the statement at some point.
I was just going to say, we'll focus on seeding in a couple of weeks' time. So this is the first part of the statement. And the first part of the statement, when we start talking about dissolving, so what are we dissolving? And for me, dissolving pseudos for me. I know you refer to them as identities, but for me, it's a lot around the pseudo me's is what I've been working
pseudo identities.
with.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So when we start talking about dissolving identities and dissolving pseudo me's, what are we actually referring to?
I am convinced, and I'm sure you are too. If you look at an identity, there is a natural flow. I know you talk about the iceberg. So what you see floating above the water of the iceberg is just the tip. There's a whole load of iceberg underneath pushing that tip out of the water. And in terms of human behavior, what we see of a person is their behavior. But there's a whole lot of human being under the surface pushing up that behavior, generating that behavior. and the essential of that is definitely his identity. So for me, when I'm utilizing the statement, I am in specific targeting the identities, the pseudo identities that are generating behavior that cause scarcity, that cause anxiety, that cause lack in my life, celebrates the problem, as it were. And I want to then replace that with an identity that is going to be about abundance. And I'm dissolving it at the identity level, because if I just dissolve the behavior, I've still got the identity that's going to create the behavior in place. And I've got nothing against smokers. If you smoke it, happy birthday. I'm happy for you. But I use the smokers as the example. I got a buddy that quit smoking, and when I asked him, so are you a non-smoker now? He just says, no, I'm a smoker that stopped. And that always used to frustrate me and irk me to the place where, because he still maintained the identity of a smoker, it was inevitable. He was going to start smoking again. It's inevitable. So if you then change the identity to one that will produce behavior that you're looking for, that's what we are looking for. Get rid of the behavior, get rid of the identity. In order to get rid of the behavior, you need to get rid of the identity that's causing it, that's generating it.
I'm going to apologize in advance here to those people who follow the behavioristic school of psychology that focus on Pavlov's dog and that whole conditioning of ringing the bell and getting the dog to salivate, and then it does it without even having food in front of it. So that whole programming. And I think that there is an element of truth to it. I don't believe that it's the whole truth. No. But when we come to what we talk about dissolving in terms of our opening activation, which is all about opening up the heart again, is that we're focusing a whole lot on, as you've talked about, and I mean, it's a model that's followed me for decades. That iceberg model is getting out underneath and into the black water, where you can't actually see your hand in front of your face. It's getting to that level of personal awareness or self-awareness of what's actually sitting there, because these are all the false beliefs that we've picked up along the way, the mind matter that you talk about a lot, the noise that goes on in our heads, all of those things that shape who we think we need to be as opposed to who we truly are. So the one area for me that really the opening activation really promotes is that shift from being in the drama triangle, because that's all dictated by identity, of the identities of the persecutor, the rescuer, and the victim. And what it does allow me to do is it allows me, the dissolving needs to take me out the drama triangle and take me out that game. And that's what the dissolving does for me, is it allows me to be very aware of where I'm in that game, where I'm in those pseudo roles, and how it then allows me to shift into, and we're not going to talk about seeding yet, but how it allows me to be in a more empowered state in space of being. So I think one of the key areas that we focus on in terms of the what and why of dissolving is self-awareness. Would you agree with me?
100%. It is about, you got to be, in order to use the statement, there's got to be an element of self-awareness. And that self-awareness for me is about when I click into the anxiety that there's a lack, there's scarcity. And that identity is robbing me of the greatness and the abundance and all the rest that goes with it. And when I'm aware of that, and joy, absolutely, and peace,
and wonder and curiosity and all of those things that are just so
sexy,
incredibly
stuff, that should be full in our lives, is just robbed by the anxiety. And that is what, so the self-awareness, one of the things I'm self-aware of is the anxiety. And in the past, I would just revel in that anxiety, where now I've got something to do with it. I've got a tool that I can use against that anxiety, and that is the opening activation. And it starts with dissolving the identity that is causing that anxiety in the first place. I mean, obviously, I'm aware in terms of the behavior. And I do want to say is when we dissolve that identity, And if you don't seed, what happens to us is the behavior. And maybe this is where the behavioral scientists will be happy with us again, is the behavior is sometimes just a habit in our lives. And if you don't deal with that habit, and if you just leave it, you're going to slip back into the habit. So for me, I use the statement a lot because I do slip into the habit of the anxiety on a fairly regular
I've
basis.
had a morning of it this morning of slipping back into habit. Sorry. It's a little bit harder for me to hear you on the phone than it is on the laptop. So if I'm over talking, I do apologize. But I've had a morning this morning of dissolve, because yesterday, I finished my challenge, as everybody knows. And I finished the challenge yesterday. And in so doing, morning, pardon?
Happy 100 day to you.
There you go again. Thank you. I will receive that. Yesterday for me was quite interesting in the sense that I still came up with an identity of not receiving. We sat through that, and here I am promoting. What is it within me, from an identity point of view, that needs to dissolve my own lack or unwillingness to receive? And so I've been using the dissolve statement a whole heap this morning about dissolving and then seeding the fact that I am in a place of being able to receive. So that's just an example, and without delving too much into the seeding. And I think it's important that we've covered this, John, in the sense that people starting to use the statement, even if they don't know what it is. If you're looking at what you're dissolving, you need to already start talking about what you want to seed in its place. Otherwise, again, as nature abhors a vacuum, and anything will do and anything will fill it if you're not deliberately focusing on a strategy to change that.
Yep. And I think the important part of the dissolving is you've got to focus or admit that the behavior, so like you're not receiving yesterday, that's not an external force. That's not an outside entity that's influencing your behavior. That is a behavior that is coming from inside of you. It's driven by an identity that is inside of you. And we are not dissolving outside forces. We are dissolving identities that are embedded within us, and habits that are embedded within us. And it's hard to talk about the dissolving without talking about the seeding, because it leaves a void, it leaves a vacuum, and it just needs to be filled.
It has to be. Sorry, I kicked the laugh. I think the thing that you're talking about, which for me is really key about dissolving, and we're probably getting a little bit into principle here, which is fine, but we can't leave you with nothing if you're going to start working with the statement. And that is the fact that along with self-awareness is its cousin, brother, sister, whatever you want to call it, and that is taking personal responsibility, as John has alluded to. It's not an outside external thing that put me into a place of not receiving. It was me, myself, it's linked to self-worth and a whole lot of other stuff. And that's why you can see why we need to work at an identity level. Self-worth sits in identity. So it's not a quick fix again. John and I we promise you one thing. We're never going to give you a quick fix. That's
no
a promise.
No shortcuts here. No hacks. Sorry. Well, in saying that, I want to justify that, is I've spent a lot of my life looking at the hows of the anxiety. And what the statement has done for me is it's got me out of the head for the hows, and allowed the energy of the dissolving and the seeding to replace that wanting to know the mechanisms. I've spent a long time, I'm in my 50s. I've spent a long time trying to figure out how it works and how I'm going to resolve it. And here comes the statement and falls in our lap. And it's a case of, geez, I don't have to do that. I don't have to figure the how. I know the identities there. I don't know how I'm going to get rid of the identity. I know how. I'm going to use the statement. How does the statement do it? Oh, well, I don't know. That I don't know. And I don't want to know. What I do want to know is, what am I replacing it with? Because that's what's going to cause the new behavior. And for me, the leap is from the scarcity mentality to the abundance mentality, from not having enough or not being enough to being worthy. And that's what the activation does for me. And that transformation, transmutation, which we'll talk about a little bit later, is also, for me, that is instant. That is quite quick. Yeah.
I think the thing that you've hit on here, which is also an important component, this is not about having, it is about being. And we also will talk about being later because it's part of the statement. And it really is, for me, focusing on that transformed me that I am shifting towards. This is all about who I'm being, not about what I'm having. We've spoken a little bit about on previous episodes of the difference between manifestation and materialization. This is not about materializing anything. This is about manifesting me in my higher self, me connecting to my spiritual purpose, who I am in the world. And the dissolving for me is a lot around what is keeping me from being able to live my purpose, live my vision. Because that's all the stuff that sits in the identity that's not allowing me to embrace the fact that I have a very special, unique purpose, as does everybody else on the planet, to be able to bring about shift and change and to move us all from a collective point of view into a very higher way of living. So whilst we're dissolving within ourselves, our own pseudo identities, we're also having an impact on the macro world and on the macro level and the people that we come into contact with. It has to. It's a droplet. Dissolving is also like dropping a water droplet in. The whole activation statement actually is dropping a water droplet into a pond and watching the ripple and the ripple effect as it ripples out into those people that we come into contact with. So I don't know that we want to get into any much more detail. We've given you enough around what it means to look at dissolving. I think possibly a couple of questions. What are those aspects of yourself that give you those squirrely feelings in your stomach that we can identify as anxiety or fear or guilt or shame or any of those emotions? What are those squirrely aspects of you that as you're watching this, you can actually feel it sitting in your solar plexus going, don't like that, it's a bit uncomfortable. Write down 2 or 3 of them. That's all you have to do. Just start with 1 or 2 or 3 of them. John started with anxiety. I've talked to you today about my inability to receive with grace and in grace. There are a whole lot more, lots and lots and lots more. I'm using it because it's topical. I mean, what can I say? I've told you guys I'm going to put myself out on a plate. I don't have an issue with being vulnerable at all. That's one thing that I don't have an issue with. So think about a couple of those things and just put the opposite of what it is that John's told you. He wants to move from scarcity to abundance, to anxiety, from anxiety to peace. I want to be in a space of, of course. I want to move from a space of unworthiness to worthiness. So what is the opposite that you want to seed in its place? And it's important, as we both said this morning, to seed something else in that vacuum. Otherwise, anything will do, or else you will be reverting back to old habits. Anything you want to say to wrap up dissolving?
Dissolve that identity, seed a new identity. Dissolve unworthiness, seed worthiness. Dissolve anxieties, seed peace. Let the awe and wonder flow through your life.
Thank you for tuning into Living Truth. Our goal is to carry a message of purpose and meaning to those who are seeking to be, do, and have a full, joyous, happy, and abundant life. If you know of any dreamers, truth seekers, light workers, and wisdom keepers who would benefit from our content, please feel free to share our material with them. We would appreciate your time in leaving us a 5-star review on this channel. And visit me, Angela James, at www.angelagailjames.com and John Usher at www.mymattermatters.com.